Peace is now. Peace is now. La paix, ici, maintenant.
अभी शांति है।
Мир — это сейчас.
Maluhia ki ia manawa.
Teraz je pokoj.
Vrede is nu.
和平在现在。La paz es ahora.
שלום עכשיו.
Kapayapaan ay ngayon.
ขอให้มีแต่ความสงบสุข Мир — це зараз.
Most van a béke.
Friede ist jetzt.
和平在現在。
Pokój teraz tutaj.
Ima wa heiwa desu.
السلام اللحظة.
A paz é agora.
Barış şimdi.
Yang menjadi.
Bây giờ hòa bình.
Sol al-an.
La pace è adesso.
Peace is now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Napa Valley Center for Spiritual Living, here or online. I'm Reverend Jay Lang, and it's so good to see everybody here today. I know everybody's choosing to participate at their comfort level, and it's always good to see people's eyes. Can't really see your face, but I see your eyes here today in the service of celebration and connection. It's so great to have you, and it's so great to have everybody online too. Especially if this happens to be your first time today, welcome. We have a wonderful service, and we like to kick off our service with a little music. Bodhi Setchko is here. Let's welcome him in our opening song here.
Yeah, this is a Jamie Lula song. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Just a simple little chant like that. Join me. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before. One more time. Something's calling me a little bit deeper than I've ever been before.
Beautiful. I appreciate everyone this morning, either online or here in person, answering the call to be here. I just came back from Palm Springs so we're part of a bigger organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, with almost 400 centers across the world, now in 27 different countries. It's great, and it was great to be there and connect with ministers and practitioners and board members and lay members, and just talk with them about what's going on in their centers and how it's going, connect with them. And it's really fun to hear stories of through the pandemic how we are doing more than surviving, we're flourishing. And people were glad to hear stories of our center and our continuing flourishing, evolution, consciousness raising that we're doing here. So it's fun to celebrate and talk about my community. But I tell you one thing, it is made me even more committed and realize how important our vision and mission is as a guiding light in what we do. So let's, like we do every service, let's begin by reading our vision and mission statement. So our vision statement: we are an inclusive community for spiritual growth and compassionate action. And our mission statement: we are co-creating a world that works for everyone by living intentionally, loving unconditionally, and seeing God in all people and all faiths. So like I said, just a recommitment and a re-intention of our vision and mission is a beautiful thing. A few things before we begin the contemplative part of our service, a few announcements. First thing, I just want to say one more thing about Palm Springs, because I had dinner with a long friend that we were both in camps. He was a camp director. And when I was working with camps, his name's David Alexander, Dr. Reverend David Alexander. He's a senior minister at the Atlanta Center for Spiritual Living. And we were having this really, I want you to believe we were having a very deep conversation. But as guys will have, we wandered into sports. And I knew he was a lifelong Packers fan. And I am a recent convert to be a 49ers fan. So if you watched any of the football game yesterday, you know it's a very dramatic finish. And so while we were still there Friday night when we were talking, we made a friendly wager. And the wager was that if the Packers won, I would be wearing green and gold Packer colors on Sunday. And if the 49ers won, he would have to wear the red and gold and on the pulpit. So he wasn't going to be on the pulpit this Sunday, but I'm sending him gear to wear next Sunday. So he was texting me during the game after the blocked punt. He was going, "I don't like you." And he goes, "I really like you, but this is just hard," or something like that. So it was a friendly, all in. So like I said, I'll be sending him some of those things for next week to wear, and I'll have to pull pictures off to show you. So he's doing great work in Atlanta. It's one of the people I really am happy with the work that he's doing there. And I'll say more about that next week, possibly. The other announcement is important to say that next Sunday is our annual community meeting. I really encourage you. We'll have our service, and right after that, we'll start this community meeting. It's really important to talk about, just for you to be aware of our financial update, about the budget, but also, and voting for new board members. But also we're going to get a chance to get some input on what's important to you at the center. A way of saying what we do best and reaffirming that, so that it's good to get that objective feedback. And we'll be doing it whether you're virtual. We'll also getting feedback. We have ways of getting, one thing, your vote, and also your feedback on what you're seeing as what our highest and best is, because we can't do everything, right? But we know that everything is in alignment with our vision, and we choose what is the most important things to do. Just like in your own life, you have to take priorities. So it's part of that prioritization that we'd like you to help us with from your perspective. And what's wonderful about being in a conscious community is what one person gives feedback about, they often represent other views in their community, people who aren't at the meeting, or people that maybe are hesitant to express themselves. So we really appreciate everybody being involved in the meeting as to your comfort level, even if you're online. And then the following Sunday is, there's two things going on. I think these might be out of order chronologically, but we have a new member class that's Sunday, January 6th, and that'll also be after the general service. And if you're just interested in knowing more about our center and what we do, what we believe, feel free to come to the meeting, and then I'll discuss that, and then you can decide whether you want to be a member or not. But it's a good way to know who we are and what we're doing. So that's that. And then backwards, the day before, on Saturday, February 5th, there's a Black History celebration that's at Crosswalk Church. But the important thing about it is this, that they've decided to go virtual. So there's no cost to the event. It's going to be on Zoom. I will post the link on our webpage for you to participate. However, there is, if you want to do this at 5:30, you have to order it ahead of time, but there's a delicious soul food experience. So they're like for $25, and you get wine and food that are part of this soul experience. So you can do that if you want to, but you have to order those ahead of time, and then you go by Crosswalk Church and pick it up after the online event is complete. So you can watch the online complete event, and if you also want the food, you can order that separately. We'll put all of that online. Yes?
So the event is online, but I know we've always had the opportunity to be there physically.
Not this year.
Not this year.
Good question. And last week, that's why I wasn't sure where they were going to sit. Now it's all virtual. So nothing in person this year, other than picking up the soul food if you want that. So, and then just letting you know that you are welcome to stay after this service for prayers with the practitioners, to fill out prayer requests. The practitioners and I meet every Tuesday morning, and we take all the prayer requests and we pray over them and continue to hold them in prayer the following week. So please know that we're in prayer for you. And if there's any kind of support you need, please call the church office, and we'll either be able to do it or find people who can do it in the valley, because this is a very generous valley. We have well-funded nonprofits here because of the abundance of our wineries who support our nonprofits. So that's really great. And then finally, any information you want about the Black History Experience or about new member or anything like that, it's all online. There are registration forms there to participate. I just realized I forgot something today. It's out in my car. I may go get that yet later while Bodhi's singing later on. But let me tell you what it is the Peace Poll is available for adoption, so to speak. So you can sign up for a month and I will deliver it to your yard, and it's a great way to share peace out into the world from your neighborhood and beyond, but it's also creates some intention in your own life. Every time you see it, you want to know the peace that's there. So I'll bring it, I'll put it out in the courtyard this afterwards, and you can kind of look at it. It's real easy. It's got a stand on it, and it's very mobile. So, and there's forms on the website that you can fill out for that or for a new member class, either one. So that'll all be on the website to find that. Okay? Now we'll begin the sacred part of our service. So we just take this moment and close our eyes and go within. And just allow a sense of spirit, a sense of peace, a sense of love to reside within us. We not be concerned with what we believe or anything outside of ourselves that may be concerning us. We just rest in the knowingness that there is only one infinite intelligence, one creative force that is the first cause of all things, and that we can experience it by just allowing this indwelling presence to be within us. Just our awareness. And we're connected with all of life. For this presence is in and through all things. So let us just take a moment just to be with this presence and allow the sun figuratively to shine upon us, and let the light within us shine as well. What I know in this moment is that there is good in all things, in all people. As we open our hearts and mind in this service, allowing ourselves to hear what we seek to hear, to experience that which we seek to experience, and knowing it comes through the music and the message, and just being in the presence in this moment. And we're just so grateful for this time we have together. That we know this oneness extends to all people online as well. That there's a network, a connection, a oneness. And for this we are grateful as we release it and let it go. And so it is. Well, welcome once again. I was inspired and deepened by my experience in Palm Springs because it was not only a connection time, but there was spiritual practice. And there was some time to listen to a number of speakers, and they were all basically saying the same thing about this is a new time, a new awakening, and a recharge time too, to allow ourselves to deeply connect. But then there was also this fun thing that happened there. And so I want to show you something that happened while we were there. There was this.
Center for Spiritual Living community that has made an innovative, thriving presence in the greater community. They have raised awareness outside of their center about science of mind, and is truly on path of creating a world that works for all. This year, this community is celebrating their 50th year as a spiritual center and 60 years of studying, living, and teaching the science of mind. For 60 years, this community has been a consistent presence of love, compassion, and community outreach locally and beyond. Their mission? To co-create a world that works for everyone by living intentionally, loving unconditionally, and seeing God in all people and all faiths. Under the leadership of the Board of Trustees and a wonderful senior minister, they have taught, practiced, and modeled oneness, compassion, and wholeness within their spiritual community. Please join me in celebrating Napa Valley CSL, Centers for Spiritual Living, recipient of the 2022 Community Award. Cheers to Napa Valley.
Introducing this year's
Looks like for those online, but it's a meritorious award honoring the work we've been doing for the last couple of years. And I just want to thank all of you, the community, because this is a community award. This is not about me, it's about us. And it's just the multitude of people that have done so much to do the work. So not only was this done, but we also played a video that Shauna Marshall created. So I'd like to show that video now that kind of highlights our community. I'm Reverend Jay Lang, the spiritual director of the Napa Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I am so pleased to accept this community award from the Centers for Spiritual Living on behalf of our spiritual community. This year marks our 60th year teaching and living the science of mind principles here in Napa Valley. Hundreds of people actively participate in our services, classes, events, our regional school of spiritual leadership, and our Spanish-speaking ministry. In the last few years, because of apparent divisions politically and socially, we have magnified our application of science of mind principles with engagement and compassionate action in the greater Napa Valley community. We have participated in women's marches, pride events, had speakers on racial issues. We've empowered and mentored diverse leaders in our community and given scholarships to diverse ministerial students. We have donated over 4,000 pounds of food to our food bank and worked with families with low incomes. I have facilitated an interfaith leadership group to have public prayer vigils and 9/11 commemorations with Jews, Muslims, and Christians. We foster the creation of a beloved community in the larger Napa Valley by honoring community heroes at events and tithing to and partnering with a dozen different nonprofits that share our vision. Together, we've created an MLK Day where, before the pandemic, over 1,200 people participated in community service annually. Thank you for acknowledging the spirit and action we have been with this award. So I think there is a great deal of pride we can have in this community. So I just acknowledge all of you. I wanted to thank Shauna, if she could come in for one moment. I think she can, I don't know how we can do that on the screen here, can we? But she'll be able to be seen online, but you know Shauna in here. And we just acknowledge the movie that she made. That was hers. So we just want to thank her for that. She's on, and thank you. I forgot that we wouldn't be able to see her in the room, but she's in Florida right now. She'll be back in a few weeks, and we'll give her a round of applause when she comes back. So I also want to thank our Board of Trustees for their guidance through this process. And especially our current president, Suzanne von Rosenberg, who has been so encouraging in areas of eliminating racism and bringing diversity, and I really appreciate her guidance in that. So I appreciate our practitioners who have literally been the healing arm of the center, who have held the consciousness when it was tough, when there were some tough times here. And it's still tough, but we know what we're doing now. We know what we're doing. We're still doing the same work. It just looks different. It's still the work of consciousness. And so I appreciate the practitioners for being that reminder for me to do that. I appreciate all those in service, part of the events we've done, the Sip and Savor, the Unbottled, so many different things. Mary Ward, oh my God, Mary Ward, let's give her a round of applause. So. Our production team that's back here, and just everybody who's engaged, who's been a part of this. And we're only going up from here. This is an emerging time for our community. This is a point which we can celebrate, and we actually have cupcakes today and some sparkling cider and just some fellowship afterwards. We're not doing that as much anymore, but today we got to do some of it. So, so just oh, I know there was one more. I talked to Reverend Janet on the day we received the award, and she was acknowledging me, but I was acknowledging her because of so much work she did with the peace table, with the interfaith group. She really I told her she set the table, prepared the food. We just had to sit down and eat. And so we really appreciate all that she did for 17 years she was here. And she told me that when I was candidating, don't bother to candidate unless I was planning to be here for a long time. And I'm planning to be here. I'm just halfway through at the minimum, so I'm here to stay. So if I had a wine glass like was done there at the event, I would cheer to our community. So let's all imagine or do a cheer. Here's to Napa Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Hip, hip, hooray. How about 3 of those? Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. All right. All right, all yours.
Wow, that's exciting. That's great. Am I on here? Okay. Yeah. So when Jay sent when they sent the theme, questioning everything, I thought, wow, how do you come up with a song like that? So I thought, well, I just went through my songs and found the song that had the most questions in it. And I realized, actually, as I was practicing this song this morning, that actually there's only questions in it. So I'm questioning everything about the world here in a fun way. I wrote it as a kid's song, but then you know how it goes with kids' songs. We realize that we're still just big kids. Where does the music go? Where does the music go? Where does the music go when it's gone? Where does the moon go when it goes away? Where does the sun go at the end of day? Where does the daytime go when it sleeps till dawn? Where does the music go when it's gone? Where do the raindrops fall from the sky? How does a teardrop melt from my eye? How do the clouds grow and what moves them along? Where does the music go when it's gone? What makes my body grow lean and strong? What makes my heart beat all day long? What makes the air so sweet when I mow the lawn? Where does the music go when it's gone? Where does the music go? Oh, sing that with me. Where does the music go? Where does the music go when it's gone? Where does the music go? Where does the music go? Where does the music go when it's gone?
That's a good question. What's the answer? Of course. I bet you do. I bet you do. So where does the music go when it's gone? Can it go away ever? No, just like life itself. It goes on even when we leave our bodies, or friends of ours leave their bodies. That life goes on. The life is always going on. And that's one of our founding principles of Science of Mind, is that life is eternal, and you don't have to earn an afterlife or do anything to receive it, because life was before and life will continue to be after. So all in all. We got deep really fast here. A question. And you know, today my talk is about questioning everything, and it's really appropriate because questions really open up possibilities. They open up creativity. They open up innovation and a new way of doing things. And the great thing about the convention this year is there was an acknowledgement. So we haven't met together in person for 2 years. And that's intentional. We have virtual conventions every other year. But it just so happened this was an odd year, or odd 2 years, because 2 years ago we met in Denver in January of 2020. And right after that, everybody went into their homes and businesses closed. And in fact, some people left that convention, and after the convention, they were saying things like, gosh, I got sick right after, and I've never been so sick. And that was before there was COVID testing, but I'm pretty sure they had COVID. I'm pretty sure that was not a super spreader event, but there was some spreading going on at that convention. I came home healthy, but some people didn't. And right after that, I know we stopped having services here, and we started having outdoor services in March, and brought the services in I think it was around July. I think we did that. And have been, but you know, I was on the fence a couple times whether we should be having them now. But I think people are taking the precautions they need and staying home. But it's been an interesting time. A lot of people call this the Great Pause, because we've had, some people have been working just as hard, I know, but there has been some times to pause, to wonder, to know what's coming next, because this is all unprecedented. I think that's an overused word, but nobody else knows what other word to use. But also, we were talking about at the convention, the speakers and conversations around meals and things like that. Really, this pause, we talked about it being a pregnant pause, because things are being birthed through this time that are new and exciting, and we have to allow that birth to happen. We can't push it ahead of time. It's got to come to full term, so to speak. And it all starts with a question. So we question everything in this idea. And really, what I know about this idea about questioning everything, it's a pathway to freedom. Think about, speaking of pregnant pauses, parents, before they decide to have a child, there's always a question about, do we want to have children? And as a mother, a future mother becomes pregnant, she wonders about what kind of child is in her, what gender expression, who will they be out in the world? Will I be able to be a good parent? How can I do that? What is the name? And yet these are all questions that are just simple ways of opening up to our own life. And also, like when a child becomes around 2, I often call being 2 the first adolescence. You know, they begin to ask a lot of questions. The most common one is why. I remember I must have been a very curious lad, because my father would always quickly answer questions. And later I learned out he was just making stuff up. You know, they weren't really the truth, but there was no Google then, right? So I think to keep me quiet, he would just tell me things, you know, just to keep me from asking more whys. But then as an adolescence, we ask questions, and it's not, we question authority. And that's our way of becoming independent, but it's also our way of trying to find our place in the world. Like, who are we? Who are we expressing? And sometimes that can be, if there's some resistance to that independence, there can be some friction in that. And even at different times in our lives, as we become young adults, as we have long-term relationships, as we hit midlife, as we age, there's always questions about, what is this new expression of me? And what is the expression of me after I leave this body? And these are all great questions, because it brings us to the present. Questions take out the idea that of regrets or things in the past, as long as we're not asking, why did that happen? And bring it to the moment about, how can I integrate this? How can I heal? How can I be present? Or our worries and anxiety about the future, we bring into this moment about how can I be present? How can I be here? How can I bring love into this moment? How can I prepare for this situation? What is it that I need to become? What do I need to embrace in order for this to happen? And we also know historically, people, spiritual leaders like Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, they all started with questions. And in the 1500s, Martin Luther asked questions about the Catholic Church that he didn't find answers, so he started his own protest, which started the Protestant movement. Copernicus asked questions about the universe, like what if the earth is not the center of the universe? How about that? What if the earth rotates around a sun? And of course, he was put in jail for that. But he asked the questions, and it evolved out of that, even if he was questioned. The 1700s, the colonists questioned British authority, and a country was birthed out of that with democracy as its founding beliefs. 1850s, slavery was questioned. Emancipation came out of that. The 1900s were an interesting time. Women began to question why they didn't have the same rights to vote. And there was also during the early 1900s the Spanish flu, and we were looking for new ways of healing because medicine was very primitive at that time, and it spawned these idea of positive thinking can influence your healing, and there's a connection between body, mind, and spirit. That all came out of that at those times, as well as because so many people were dying from World War I and the Spanish flu. There was an advent of interest in spiritualism, of medium, of talking to those who passed on, and that was, although that's not a core part of our beliefs, our faith came out of those traditions. And then in the 1960s, that's like another pivotal time of people asking questions, not don't trust anybody over 30. Remember that statement? But out of that came civil rights, farm worker and other labor movements, GLBTQ rights, a new age of spirituality that happened then, a new way of seeing what freedom was, that is an internal freedom as well as an external freedom. And all that developed out of questions. And flash forward to 2020, we're in a great awakening right now too during this pause. We're recognizing that this earth, we can't continue to live like that. And how can we heal the earth while we're healing ourselves? How can we heal the divide between us politically and socially, emotionally? The faith divides, and how can we come together as one being, one people? Albert Einstein is known for his curiosity. And it's amazing the work he did, but he calls curiosity as holy. He thinks it's a sacred thing to do, a spiritual thing to be curious. And he says that if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I would use the first 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask. We often look for the answers before we know the best question. Reverend Edward Vioun, who's the senior minister at Santa Rosa Center for Spiritual Living, but he's also our spiritual director, who's elected that 2 years ago. And on the first night of our convention, he spoke, and he was talking about the importance of curiosity. And I just love that because that's what we've been talking about here at this center too. And he talked about how Bishop Spong, and if you don't know him, he just passed this year, but he's done a lot of work. He's a scholar of Christianity, and he was given a talk at one of our conventions about if Christianity didn't change, it would die. If it was going to say conservative and a literal interpretation of the Bible. And of course, everybody was excited about that, and they clapped to go, yes, that's true. But as Edward said, he reflected that he was clapping. He was also thinking, That's true of us too, that if we don't continue to change, if we don't let Spirit reveal in us what is our highest and best, if we're not willing to grow and evolve, which our founder Ernest Holmes said, we're grounded in principle, but we are open at the top. But he said we would die too. And so he talked about the importance of continuing to open up to our greater expression. And he also shared something that I didn't know. In 2005, so less than 20 years ago, we had a convention like the one I attended. And people wanted the organization to support same-sex marriage. And guess what? There was a majority who did not want to support it. And I was shocked by that. Because here I believe we are an inclusive community and we embrace all people. And less than 20 years ago, that's not very embracing. And he's also went on to say that there were people there that felt betrayed by our faith. And I wasn't there at that time, but I'm thinking that we probably didn't ask enough questions. We probably didn't talk to the people who were seeking to have this marriage equality and why it was important to them, what they were seeking. We probably based our vote on old beliefs that we weren't willing to refresh. Now, being mindful people, within a couple years, we reversed that decision and supported marriage equality because we started asking more questions and we started hearing the hurt and rejection people felt and why they felt that way. That it really wasn't about us at all. It was about those that were seeking this equality. And I think we individually and collectively need to continue to question things. More recently, in the last 10 to 15 years, I personally have had questions, and I know our faith has had questions about transgender issues and what that meant. Luckily, we learned and we began to ask more questions and understand the experience and understand what they were seeking. And we have embraced transgender, non-conforming gender expressions fully. And this year we had one of our main speakers was a trans woman. And one of our teens he actually won the Youth of the Year, just like we won an award for Community of the Year. He won Youth of the Year. He's a trans woman. Or no, he's a trans man. Let me get this right. Okay, yes. He's a trans man. And so how great that we're embracing it so much that we're seeking the diverse expressions. Because I know that diversity, which includes races, cultures, gender expressions, gender identities, and all orientations and expressions makes us smarter, wiser, more creative because we're open in that way. And questions are what opened this up in that way. So the other thing we need to do is not only question everything, but once we open up and question, we need to look and listen within to reveal the truth. And this wisdom comes in many different forms. It could be a phrase or something we hear. It could be an image, a feeling, or come through teachers or speakers or books or synchronistic events we might have. And sometimes when I'm doing this, when I'm seeking guidance on something, I wonder, how do I know it's the voice of Spirit or the highest and best for me? Well, what I know is that what we receive, whether it's in a book or what we hear from somebody else or what we experience from within us, it always harmonizes with who Spirit is. And we know Spirit has certain qualities of unity, of love, of connection, of bringing together, never separating, of unity. So because we know this, we know that we won't be led astray by a voice within us because it's about connecting and unifying. There are sometimes, no doubt that there's times to let something go, but that's still freedom for the people involved. Most often, if it's not, if there's something destructive in it, then it's probably not in the highest and best. But some way to find ways to consciously uncouple or consciously let go. And that's why we do it mindfully in this way. While I was on the plane ride, Palm Springs, if you've never been there, it's surrounded by mountains. I didn't know on two sides, so it's just a valley. And so when planes come in, they come in pretty steep in, and there's often some turbulence right there because it's coming off the mountains. There's winds and things like that. So we were coming in on our final approach, and I was, they'd already had us put away all our stuff and underneath our seats, and I was just holding my phone loosely, just kind of looking at some stuff. And I had the sense to hold on to the phone a little tighter. And I'm going, okay. And sure enough, it was a really rough landing. It was a couple bounces before we kind of smoothed out. I love those, you know. But what was interesting is there was something hit my foot when we bounced in, and I reached down and picked it up, and it was a book. And I go, wow, that's weird. You know, I said to myself, when we fully land, I'll turn around and see whose book it is because it just slid up. But I started looking at it, and it's a book by Priscilla Shirer. And normally, it's not a book I would pick up because it was very Bible-based. But the title intrigued me about discerning the voice of God. Wow, discerning the voice of God. I want to discern the voice of God. And as I read a little bit of it. It was very Bible-based. But what was interesting is she was talking the language that we would do. You know, take out the word Jesus and put spirit in there. Take out the pronoun he and put in, you know, it or spirit again. And it could have been a book any one of us could have written. And anyway, when we landed, I turned around to ask if it was Buddy's book. Nobody's book. But once again, I want to be discerning. So just like she said, discerning the voice of God. So I want to make sure that it's in alignment with God. Not necessarily fully what I believe, but with the qualities of God. In fact, there's a lot of things I didn't believe in the way she stated them. But she's talking about having empty space to listen to the voice of God. Letting go of our addiction to busyness, letting go of distractions, the discipline to be still and listen, to have divine conversations that happen in this place of quiet, and then let them blossom in the richness of its soil through the rest of our busy day. That could be any of us talking, right? So when I was able to let go, and I even found this quote by her that said, was talking about, I have to read it here, never expect the Holy Spirit to speak anything that's contrary to what's written in the Scripture. Now, I wouldn't say the Scripture necessarily, but I would say with what I know about Spirit. So that's the same thing I said a minute ago. To be discerning, we know that it's about Spirit. It's in alignment with what Spirit is. So really, that's the same thing. So a little bit of healing, a little bit of clarity. Really enjoyed the book since it's mine now. I guess maybe next time on a plane, I'll just leave it on the plane or in a random place. I don't know. I feel like it is a book I need to pass it forward in some way. I'll figure out how to do that. But it was a lovely book. And the other thing about this pathway to freedom is we act from the divine truth. So that which is coming in us and through us, we recognize a greater truth coming from this divine truth, from this sense we have, from the wisdom we might experience in a book or a speaker or some event we had. As I mentioned, there was a speaker there at the convention. Her name is Gabrielle Claiborne. And she was really a wonderful and fun speaker. And she spoke about, to get unstuck, we must acknowledge the fears in our head, but act on the truth in our heart. And that's what I'm talking about, the truth in our heart that we experience, that we can let go of the fears in our head that we're making up, because fears are not a feeling. Fears is something about the future that we're making up. If we're in the now and we're asking questions about what's opening us up, the fears go away. And we just allow this greater truth of who we are to be that which opens us up. And to be truly free, we need to question everything, find the answer within, and act from this truth. So as I mentioned about when we talk about these questions, talking about this evolution of our center, I see this vision and mission as still very active and still becoming in every way. And the activity that we do out in the world, like here, that is both a combination of prayer and action. And I love what Ernest Holmes talked about in a he calls it spiritual armament that he wrote. And he said this: "For faith is dead without works. And if the whole nation works together and prays together, a great moral and spiritual power, an actual soul force, will penetrate the whole world, helping to bring confidence and calm judgment and right action." Now, he wrote this piece right as the Korean War was starting in 1950. So he was talking about, as a nation, not being caught up in the Cold War that was happening, that we need to know peace, but we also can do action. But I love his phrase, soul force. Because I know that's what we're doing as a community. So instead of the whole nation, the whole community works together to pray together, but also act together, because the combination of those things is this soul force that we can do to bring confidence and calm judgment and right action, not only in us, but in all people, because it's a soul force that spreads out into the world. Dr. Viljoen also said, "May the actions we take be steeped in peace and respect for the sacredness of each life, knowing that whatever we do individually and collectively must be divinely directed from a higher consciousness." And that's what we know. So I celebrate us today. I celebrate the Spirit in us, and I celebrate the soul force that we are doing. Let us go to prayer. I know within us is this divine soul force. And I know collectively we are even a stronger soul force. So we just let Spirit guide us as we listen to this divine intelligence within us. That we're willing to ask questions when we become stuck, when we don't know the way. And we're willing to follow that which is being revealed in us, which is a healing, a wholeness, a love that is deeper than we can ever imagine, than we can ever think about. For we know it is Spirit itself revealing in us. I know all those who have prayer requests today, whether they're written or spoken or just thought about in your mind, that they're heard by the universe, and the universe responds to them. I know that is happening in this moment and all moments, as we are grateful and knowing in all ways. And so it is. After you do that, we're not sure whether to clap, so we'll just do this, right? Thank you, Bodhi. I appreciate it. So this is the time in our service we invite you to participate in the law of circulation. What we know in spiritual principle is what you give returns back to you tenfold. So whether your gift is today of a love blessing, gratitude for this community, or one of a financial contribution, just hold your hand up to your heart. And could you advance the slide for me? We know there's several ways to donate, but if you could go back to the next slide and repeat with me. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have and all that I circulate, and so it is. There's baskets up front and in the back if you want to take the walk to give to the basket. Thank you.
God is the source of who I am. God is the dream of what I do. And if it's God I'm talking to, I give myself to be used by you. God is the source of who I am. God is the dream of what I do. And if it's God I'm talking to, to be used by you. God is the source of who I am. God is the dream of what I do. And if it's God I'm talking to, I give myself to be used by you. I give myself to be used by you. I give myself to be used by you.
Now we can clap. So good to have you back in our community, Bodhi. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it feels like home.
I agree. Thank you all for donating of your time, talent, and treasures. This is what feeds this community, and hopefully we're doing everything to feed you as well. So let us know if there's anything that you need at any time. We also like to acknowledge anybody who might be here for the first time. If you're willing to raise your hand, we have a card for you. Anybody here for the first time? Or perhaps online, anybody who's the first time, you can put it in the comment section. We want to acknowledge you as well. We're grateful for you. If you don't receive our weekly emails, call Mary or send Mary an email. She's at office@nvcsl.com, and you can get on our mailing list that way, or go on our website. There's a way to do that too, to get to know announcements and different things like that. It's good to be a part of that. But we will raise our hands in a blessing for all people here and all people online as we say together. We bless you today, knowing that the peace and happiness you seek is also seeking you. We honor your inner radiance as you let your light shine in the world. We're grateful for your presence in our community, and so it is. So we will, invitation to prayer. There's prayer cards out in the lobby, as well as if you so want to stay here, the practitioners, Diana is stepping up here. If you want to pray with Diana afterwards, Imelda is here. She too can be here and she can pray with you after the service. So thank you. And then the community affirmation, repeat after me. Something wonderful is happening through me right now. I'm led by Spirit. I'm guided by wisdom. I am protected by love. I am here to be a blessing. I am so grateful. And so it is. And now for our closing song. Join us for cupcakes and sparkling cider, and join us for the meeting next week too after the service. What I know is that we are blessed right where we are, and if we ask these questions, Spirit opens up in us in all ways. So blessings, and have a good Sunday.